What is going on, you guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, and we are here to talk about WWE Night of Champions 2026 live for the second, third year in a row in Saudi Arabia. And this particular show, top to bottom, not the most spectacular show in ring wise. I mean, some pretty good matches on there, but this show will be mainly remembered for a lot of the outcomes on this show, because heading into it with a lot of lackluster build into some of these matches, it had a lot of people very worried and concerned about what kind of finishes we would get. And at least for myself, I'm speaking when I say WWE made the right call with at least three of the big outcomes on this show. We have a brand new WWE Champion, and his name is Sami Zayn, as Sami managed to pull out the win in the triple threat main event with Cody Rhodes and Gunther. Sami ends the show in Saudi with the WWE Championship, and despite his character being a little more on the heel side, he was certainly not treated like a bad guy or antagonist in any way on this night in front of the Saudi crowd, who just absolutely loves Sami and were over the moon about him winning that championship. He celebrated in the crowd as both Gunther and Cody were left looking crestfallen in the ring. Sami, the last real good guy, as he calls himself, walks out as the champion. And this match overall was pretty good. Felt a little on the short side, which a lot of the matches between Cody and Gunther heading into this show, the one we saw at Clash in Italy, and they had a championship rematch on SmackDown not too long ago. So a lot of these matches between these two have felt very short, and this one was really no exception. But I still thought that, especially with the addition of Sami Zayn in here, that added a nice element to things. As most of you know, SmackDown every single week on Friday nights is not the most pleasing show to watch, to the point where I rarely, if ever, watch the show live and follow along with it every single week. I just can't. I can't do it. But on the off chance that I do, or whenever I look at clips of SmackDown, the one person in recent months, and, of course, there's talent on the show. It's just a matter of the creative team and the booking team not putting them in great positions. But one character who has caught my attention is Sami Zayn. The same Sami Zayn who, quite frankly, about 4, 6, 8 months ago, really was not the most captivating personality to watch on the show. He had another championship match at the Royal Rumble. He lost his 9th or 10th straight match against Drew McIntyre there, and coming out of that show, he just felt like another guy, and there was nothing special about him. He was still talking about how one day he's going to become world champion, and after that, I really didn't have an appetite for it, especially, with a lot of fans thinking that, well, with WrestleMania in Saudi next year, that he might win the championship there at WrestleMania, get the big pop and big ovation, big underdog story for him, and I just wasn't feeling it. And then the feud with him and Trick Williams started up, and we saw the tides turning. The fans were turning on Sami, and instead of ignoring it, they kind of, fed into it a little bit, and we saw that reflected in that feud, and it carried over into this stuff with Cody Rhodes, who himself is a very stale personality on the show. So seeing these two go back and forth on the mic for the past several weeks has been very interesting. It's made me way more interested in Sami Zayn, and it made me a little bit more interested in Cody than I have been in many, many months, but not to the point where I really had an appetite to see Cody remain the WWE Champion, because I certainly did not. Heading into this show, I wanted to see that title change. I wanted to see something different for SmackDown, and Sami was the guy. Gunther could have been the guy. They could have went that route last month at Clash in Italy, but they chose not to. And Gunther's stock has definitely fallen. He is nowhere near the special attraction that I and a lot of people felt that he was for a very long time. And that's unfortunate because this is the same man who once upon a time, longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, had the World Championship twice, just was the final opponent of John Cena last December. Very next month, retired AJ Styles. So he had some momentum and, the whole career killer stuff. I can do without that. But he had a specialness to him. And then they took him off TV for several weeks before WrestleMania, rushed him back for a very slap-together feud with Seth Rollins because both men's original plans fell through. So they kind of got paired up, and they had a pretty good match, but, it was over and done with. And while it looked like Gunther was heading in one direction on Raw, again, plans changed, and they shifted him over to SmackDown, put him up with Cody. And they had the opportunity to try to regain some of that lost momentum by having him beat Cody at Clash in Italy and win that championship, but they didn't do it. They did a finish that was clearly designed to build to a rematch, but they did it in such a way where it just positioned Gunther as just another guy. And that's the last thing I wanted to see for someone like him, where you have certain people on this roster who have, and I shudder to say this word, but aura. And there's a certain aura and presentation and specialness to them and their character that Gunther once had, but he has not had it in a very long time. Some may argue you can circle it all the way back to when he tapped out to Jey Uso at WrestleMania last year, but he managed to kind of crawl back from that a little bit. But him being off of television or him behaving very uncharacteristically and just being another person in a long line of stale, repetitive Cody Rhodes feuds has not done him any favors. So now with this, this is technically the third loss in a row for him. He lost to Cody at Clash in Italy. He lost in that SmackDown rematch when Sami was the special referee. Then they ran it back immediately, and I guess he technically won that by DQ. But he gets to this triple threat, and meanwhile, he did not get pinned, sure, but he lost again. He failed yet again to win the WWE Championship, and going into this show and now even coming out of it, I'm way more interested in seeing the further development between Cody and Sami as their own program. Heading into this show, quite frankly, Gunther felt like a tag-along. He felt like the third wheel here in the story between Cody and Sami. Gunther did have a part in the story. It's just his element was not nearly as strong as Sami's, which is why when I wanted to see a title change here, Sami was the guy who I wanted to see. And so Gunther, I don't know. Why don't you go find witness protection or wherever Ilya Dragunov has been hiding for the past several months and pull him back, put him back on TV, and let the two of them work together for a few months. And just let them have a series of kick-ass matches, maybe even one at SummerSlam. You can pick either night of that show, open the night with it, let Ilya and Gunther go at it, and let them tear the house down. That will do a lot to restore a lot of credibility for both men, but mainly Gunther in this case. So for him, let him go off with that. As for Sami and Cody here, now look, I don't have any delusions of grandeur that Sami Zayn's going to have this epic, long, 3, 6, 8 month, year-long championship run on top of SmackDown as the top guy, heel or babyface. I don't see that happening. Now, do I want to see him just lose the belt immediately at SummerSlam? Or even before that, they have a Saturday night's main event show in Madison Square Garden. I don't want to see him lose that either. I don't want to see him lose it immediately, but the likelihood is there, and depending on what decision Oba Femi makes, we'll get to that in a moment, that could free up the WWE Championship picture, and they could very easily just run back Cody and Sami one-on-one at SummerSlam. I don't know who else you would have Cody work with, unless Randy Orton's ready to come back and they can resume their feud beltless. That's a possibility. If they did that, then Sami's left without an opponent, and I don't really have an appetite to see Gunther challenge Sami, because Sami, again, despite the reaction here in Saudi, he is leaning a little more. I mean, he kind of plays shades of gray, and of course, delusional Sami talking about the ride or die fans and all that, but he is more aligned with the heel side than not right now. So I don't really necessarily want to see him face Gunther. I don't want to see him face Oba Femi either. So who could come out of the woodwork to potentially face Sami Zayn? I have a name, a little bit out of left field, but what if within these next few weeks, we have 5 weeks till SummerSlam as of this recording, what if we get CM Punk coming back? Punk should be back soon. I know there's been wild rumors about this man for the past several months, ever since he disappeared from TV coming out of WrestleMania. But I expect that he'll be back in time for SummerSlam. And the scuttlebutt, the rumor going around, is he might be appearing on SmackDown, and he might be a SmackDown guy moving forward. I would love it if Punk came back, got on the SmackDown show, and if they're not going to go right into Cody and Sami in a rematch for the championship at SummerSlam or what have you, I'd love it if CM Punk returned and we got Sami versus Punk for the championship at SummerSlam. I think that would be a really interesting feud and direction to go in for the two of them. And if Randy Orton can come back, we can resume the Cody-Randy stuff, which after how they handled it heading into WrestleMania, I don't really have an appetite for that either. But, I mean, maybe with the championship out of the picture, maybe with both men chasing after the title instead, and you strip away all the celebrity nonsense that got plagued upon it heading into WrestleMania, and it's just Cody and Randy one-on-one. That's it. That could be its own undercard feud. Meanwhile, one of the potential Night 1 main events of SummerSlam could be Sami defending that championship against CM Punk. I'd like that. Now, what realistically do I see happening? I think they're going to just do Cody and Sami one-on-one, and Cody's just going to get the belt back because he's the guy, and he's going to hold on to the championship. We've already seen him win and lose the championship a few times now, and you have to imagine that belt's going to come right back around his waist at some point. I'm not even going to really entertain the idea of, what if they do a double turn? They're not going to do a double turn. I have no expectations of that. I'm not even going to entertain that thought. It would be nice if they did it, but they're not going to. I'd like to see Sami get a little run with it. I don't think it's going to happen. I'll be pleasantly surprised if it does, but we'll see what direction they go in. It does open things up. It does freshen things up just a little bit on the SmackDown side. That show needs a lot more work than just who the champion is, believe me. But it's at least a little bit of a change of scenery with someone fresh as the champion, which is crazy to say because Sami has been around this company forever. So the fact that we can classify him as a fresh option as champion is funny, but this is the first time he's held the championship. Michael Cole even said on commentary, in which during the match at one point when there was some commotion over by the announce tables, and Sami got backdropped through an announce table. Gunther powerbombed Cody through an announce table. During that entire sequence of events, at one point, the audio from Michael Cole's headset went out, and it kind of came back, but it was a little muffled. Then Corey gave him his headset, and then the headset eventually did get fixed, so both men were talking normally at the end of the night. It felt like there were a few audio issues on this show. I don't know if anyone else picked up on it, but I could kind of tell at different points that the commentary sounded a little muffled. Mark Nash, the ring announcer, his mic sounded a little quiet at different points, and it was not because the fans were that loud, trust me. But, although they were loud. But Cole mentioned how Sami, this was like his 10th attempt at winning the championship. This was his 10th shot at winning the title. So, I look at that as, a nice payoff there, and he is a fresher face to hold that championship because of that, and I'd like to see him get a little run with it, even if it is just he makes it through Saturday night's main event, he can make it through SummerSlam, and we'll see from there. But yeah, I'd like to see them run with him. At least let him run with it a little bit longer than they had Drew McIntyre run with it at the beginning of the year. So we'll see what they do. But I mentioned Oba Femi. Oba Femi opened the show. In fact, the finals of both the King and Queen of the Ring were within the first hour of this show. Of course, the first hour aired on ESPN. What was it, ESPN2 or whatever ESPN channel it was. That's where the first hour of this show was held. And in the opening match, it was the King of the Ring finals between Jey Uso and Oba Femi. The online discourse over this King of the Ring tournament, honestly both tournaments, but especially the King of the Ring tournament for the past month or so, has been very wild, as is most wrestling discourse, of course. But let's just say this is not the finals that a lot of people would have wanted or preferred, and certainly wasn't what I would have wanted or preferred. But we got what we got, and lots of questions, lots of theories, and lots of predictions heading into this one. The last thing I wanted to see was Jey Uso not only win the King of the Ring tournament and get a championship match at SummerSlam. That already by itself is a bad direction in my mind. But the thought of him actually beating Oba Femi was not something that I was very interested in seeing happen. And thankfully, it did not. Because this match, the atmosphere for this match was off the charts. The crowd, this might have been the peak of how loud the crowd was on this entire night. Both men got great responses during their entrances. Then the bell rang, and while Jey fought valiantly and got a few near falls in there with a couple of super kicks and splashes and his weak looking spear and things like that, he hung in there the best he could. But he was no match for the Ruler, who put him down with the fall from grace and got the clean win. And again, heading into this show, you had a lot of people thinking that Jey was going to win because we might see an appearance from Brock Lesnar. The same Brock Lesnar who beat Oba Femi at Clash in Italy last month and has disappeared. Meanwhile, Oba was in the tournament. He has won dominantly every single minute of the way throughout this entire thing. And almost every single week, people have been thinking like, oh, well, this is surely going to be the time that Brock Lesnar shows up because Oba's still cutting promos on Brock and talking shit about Brock Lesnar. So, of course, Brock's going to return here. He's going to screw him out of the four-way match, or he's going to screw him over against Dominic, or he's going to injure him in a way where he won't even be able to compete in a match, and he'll be mathematically disqualified from the tournament. He'll be, too injured to compete or anything like that. But no, this whole way through, Oba has looked strong and dominant, and he made it all the way here. This was not very much of a match. It was quite weak, to be honest with you, but it was the right outcome with Oba winning and winning clean, which was very important here. And now he is set to challenge for a championship at SummerSlam. The question is, I mentioned Brock Lesnar. I guess we got to keep mentioning him until he shows up. What are they going to do with that? And I'll give them credit. They have not gone the totally predictable route with Oba so far. Almost at every turn, a lot of us have expected Brock to show up and Oba to get screwed over and lose here or there, but he has not so far. Brock has not uttered a peep. So, is he going to pop up on Raw this upcoming Monday? Is he going to pop up at any point heading into SummerSlam? Mainly with the idea that with SummerSlam being a 2-night event in Minneapolis, a lot of people expect that Brock Lesnar, who has been billed from being from Minneapolis, of course he went to school there and all that, a lot of people expect that he will be there to some capacity, and a third match between him and Oba Femi is very likely to take place on that show. Now, we have two options at our disposal here for how they're going to handle this. One is Brock returns before SummerSlam, and they do set up a match at that show between Brock Lesnar and Oba. But Oba has his own little 2-night run through double duty type thing where on night 1 he faces Brock Lesnar, and then on night 2 he can challenge Roman Reigns for the World Heavyweight Championship. That is an option. I don't hate it. I do worry that, especially if you have Oba win both matches, that could potentially run the risk of it looking like too much too soon for him and could speed up the process of the fans potentially turning on him. He's super over right now. You heard it on this show, but you have him go in there and just steamroll over Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns all in one weekend, and it's like, what's really left for him to do, So, and of course you could have him beat Brock and then lose to Roman. That's also a possibility. But there's another idea, which is you keep the fans guessing every single week. People think that Brock's going to show up here or there, but he doesn't. But then we all basically can come to the conclusion that they will save Brock Lesnar's return for SummerSlam itself. And they do Oba versus Roman. That's your night 2 main event. And right when it looks like Oba's going to put down the tribal chief and win the championship, that is when we get the appearance of Brock Lesnar. Brock returns, puts down Oba, and paves the way for Roman to get the win. Brock and Oba go off, have their third match, maybe at WrestlePalooza, if they do that show again this year in September. And we save Oba winning and beating Roman for WrestleMania in Saudi next year. Oba can win the Rumble, choose Roman, if Roman is still the champion at that point, which I think if Roman makes it out of SummerSlam, it's almost a guarantee in my mind that he is going to hold on to that championship for at least another several months heading into WrestleMania. At that point, I don't see where else in the calendar year he would lose that championship. So I would suspect that Roman would hold on to that belt for a year, walk into Mania as the champion, and defend against Oba in a rematch, and that's where Oba finally wins the belt. So I think those are two viable options there. I'm just happy to see them do the right thing on this show, which is Jey Uso never should have been in the finals in the first place, but if he was going to be, he definitely should not have beaten Oba Femi, and he did not. What they do with Jey Uso now coming out of this, don't really care. I'm sick of the bloodline stuff. I know a lot of people still like it. They chant OTC. They love the drama and all that stuff. And hey, I am slightly intrigued by what they will do with Solo Sikoa going forward after the MFTs, thankfully, have disbanded and are no more. So that's a little element that intrigues me slightly. But overall, the bloodline stuff, I'm over it. I've been beyond over it for a very long time now. So Jimmy and Jay and all that, I really could, I don't want anything to do with it. It's not really my concern. What they do with Oba and Roman, that is my concern. So I would love to see that be the championship match. And seeing as how Sami is the champion, at least for now, is the champion, I don't see any scenario where Oba would pick Sami to face at SummerSlam. Story-wise, it would probably make sense because between Sami and Roman, Oba might look at Sami as the easier target and can just destroy him and beat him for the belt, but that's not really a marquee championship match in my eyes. Whereas Oba and Roman, that's a WrestleMania match that they could do at SummerSlam. So we'll see what they do. Also, within the first hour, we had the Queen of the Ring tournament finals. Iyo Sky taking on the Women's World Champion Liv Morgan. Of course, I share the same sentiments that everyone else has had for the past several weeks, which is that World Champion Liv Morgan had no business being in this tournament to begin with, let alone making it to the finals. But with that said, this company clearly had their own agenda and idea of what they wanted to do, and that's what they did. Before the match even started, they gave away the finish when they had Danhausen come out to wave to the crowd, but was immediately interrupted by Liv Morgan, and he put a curse on her. And then she slapped him, and made her way to the ring. But at that point, you knew exactly what was about to happen. And so the two women, Liv and Iyo, had a pretty good match. Nothing spectacular. I know they've had a bunch of matches in the past before. Some of them I remember being pretty good, but nothing great. Like nothing like, oh, that was an excellent match or anything like that. No, but it was fine. And I mean, just like the curse predicted, Iyo got the win with the over the moonsault. They had a pretty good back and forth, and Liv was very aggressive at points during this match, even targeting Iyo's knee at one point, but it was not enough to keep her down, and Iyo got the win, and she is the queen of the ring. I think this is the first time we've had two baby faces both win the crowns, so that's something, you know. Well, I guess technically that happened last year because Jade was still a babyface, and of course Cody won. So technically that did happen, but it doesn't happen all that often. So we had two babyfaces win, and no need for speculation for Iyo because after she won, she was interviewed by Byron Saxton, and she immediately challenged Liv Morgan to a match at SummerSlam. So they're running this back with the idea that here in the finals, Iyo beat Liv, so clearly that means she can just beat her again at SummerSlam for the championship. But wrestling logic would dictate, well, Liv lost here, and I don't see her losing again at SummerSlam, so there you go. I don't think you needed to do this. You could have had Iyo face anyone else and still challenge Liv, but that's not the story they wanted to tell. This is the story that they wanted to tell in this tournament and setting up their match for SummerSlam. And, I mean, it's fine. It's a story. I can't deny that. It's just not one that I particularly liked or am fond of. But it is what it is. I mean, playing, showing my hand here, but yeah, I don't expect Iyo to beat Liv again at SummerSlam. This is the same Liv who won that championship back in April at WrestleMania. It is now the end of June, soon to be beginning of August, soon to be heading into SummerSlam. Or end of June, beginning of July, soon to be heading into SummerSlam in August. That's what I meant to say. Even still, it's been many, many months of Liv Morgan as world champion. She has not defended that championship on television one time. I know they were setting up to do a rematch with her and Stephanie coming out of WrestleMania. Stephanie was hurt, and now there's rumors of visa issues for some of the talent, and Stephanie could potentially be wrapped up in that. That doesn't matter. You have plenty of women on this division, both shows between Raw and SmackDown. And there's plenty of women on SmackDown right now who aren't doing anything of note, who they easily could have just traded over to Raw or just had them show up on Raw, because you have people just showing up on each show every single week anyway with no consequence or any rhyme or reason. Nothing to stop them from sending someone over to Raw to feud with Liv Morgan for a few weeks. You know, do a couple of back and forths between them for 2 or 3 weeks, build up to a championship match, boom, you're done, move on to the next one. At least 1 or 2 people that Liv could have worked with in this downtime. You can't just blame, well, oh, they had a plan with Stephanie, but Stephanie's gone. So that just means do nothing with Liv. And then the one thing you do accomplish with her is putting her in a tournament that she had no business being in the first place. Yeah, no, that's not ideal in my eyes. But what's done is done. And the direction we're going on, it looks like that SummerSlam match with Iyo might be her actual first championship defense since winning the belt. I don't know how a champion can be on the show damn near every single week and not defend their belt at least once. Well, I do know how that works because Jade Cargill did it for 100 days last year when she was the women's champion. So it is possible. But regardless, that takes care of all the big things. Now, some of the not so huge things was the rest of the card, which is funny to say because among those not so big things was a steel cage match to blow off this feud between Bron Breakker and Seth Rollins. Things started off pretty slow, and a little uninteresting, but they picked up pretty nicely towards the end there. The cage was already filled with a bunch of weapons like chairs and tables and whatnot, so we knew this was going to be the obligatory plunder match on the show. But both men had their working shoes on. They pulled out some big spots in this match, including one point where Seth superplexed Bron off the very top of the cage, crashing down through a table, and somehow in that mix-up, Bron Breakker ended up getting busted open and was bleeding. I don't know if it was from the eye directly or if there was a cut around the eye, but he had a big smear of blood on his face. And of course, in a steel cage match, that's kind of the visual that you would want to go for sometimes. So it definitely worked to add a little extra something on the match. But both men kicked out of each other's finishers, the spear and the stomp and all that. But in the end, Bron Breakker, he kind of, went out defiantly. He was on his knees looking up at Seth, and Seth looking back down at him, and he did his little breaker pose thing, showing that, give me your best shot, or whatever. And Seth connected with an avalanche stomp to get the win. Now, and maybe it's still possible, I don't know how it would happen, but I thought that there was a chance Oba would lose and Jey would win, and they would set up Jey Cody for SummerSlam, meaning that Brock and Oba would be its own match and leaving Roman without an opponent for SummerSlam, which could lead to Roman versus Seth Rollins. With that idea in mind, I thought the best course of action would be for Seth to win, so it would make sense for him to challenge Roman for the championship at SummerSlam. Well, without knowing for sure what the title match is going to be, at this point in time, it looks very likely that Oba is going to face Roman for that championship, meaning Seth doesn't really have an opponent for SummerSlam, so he didn't really need to look too strong to set him up for a championship match against Roman, meaning I don't think he really needed to win this match. They have cooled off Bron Breakker significantly ever since he got hurt and then came back from that injury. Him and Seth have had a couple of matches. All of them have been good. In fact, I would say each match they have had has been better than the one previously. Their first match at Backlash was pretty good. And then they had a rematch on Raw not too long ago, and that was even better. This cage match, again, it started slow, but how it crescendoed and built up to, I thought it was very good and was a pretty good finale for this feud. I think you probably should have went with Bron Breakker to get the win here, but again, I don't know what they're going to do with Seth. I don't know what they're going to do with Bron, but between the two of them, the one more likely to be in a championship mix soon enough would be Seth, but I just with how things appear now, it doesn't look like Seth will be in a championship match at SummerSlam, so I think they could have given the win to Bron Breakker here and let this feud end with the younger future star getting the win. But, man, I tell you what, you look at the landscape of things, and Oba Femi leapfrogged over Bron Breakker very easily in the overall pecking order of things. So, good for him. But when you look at some of these guys on the show, and Bron Breakker can still be that, but it's just right now, it looks very much and feels very much like he is kind of left out in the cold, and it's going to take a while to build him back up to be viewed in that light. But it's not impossible. And we also had 2 United States Championship matches on this show. Trick Williams defending the men's U.S. title against Ricky Saints. Good to see these 2 young guys on a big PLE show like this. The crowd popped for their entrances, but didn't really care much for the actual match, which was unfortunate because they actually were having a pretty good match. And Trick Williams came out victorious, got the trick shot, and retained his championship. Lil Yachty came back out. He got kicked out earlier in the match after Ricky Saints faked like he got attacked by Yachty with his kendo stick, but After the match, when Trick was posing and Ricky came in looking to do a post-match sneak attack, Yachty came back with his kendo stick. They laid out Ricky, and Yachty hit him with a people's elbow, much to the fans' nonplussed reaction. So there you go. Then the Women's U.S. Championship was defended on this show for the first time since the title's existence. The Women's U.S. title was actually defended on the PLE. It was Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill. These two have had a few matches in the past. None of them have been all that good, and this one was no exception. The only thing that made it really remarkable was some of the interference and cameos and stuff in this match, where we had Meechin and B-Fab show up, and of course Chelsea Green fought them off. She introduced the belt into the ring, so when Jade kind of disposed of Chelsea and the referee was checking on her, Jade got the belt and was going to use it, but then Charlotte Flair appeared. The same Charlotte Flair who Jade screwed out of the Queen of the Ring tournament not too long ago. Charlotte appeared, whacked her in the face with the belt. Tiffany hits prettiest moonsault ever and gets the win. So this pairing with Tiffany and Chelsea will clearly continue, but the big story is we are clearly setting up Jade Cargill versus Charlotte Flair for SummerSlam, and after losing 3 straight PLE matches and losing the Queen of the Ring, Jade lost her championship, lost the rematch, lost a shot at the U.S. title. I'm pretty sure Jade's going to be the one victorious coming out of that match with Charlotte whenever they have it. And, you know, Jade with the right people has looked very good in the ring, has improved a lot, but we've seen a few occasions in recent weeks where she's been a little shaky. So we'll see what kind of magic her and Charlotte have in a big singles match at SummerSlam. And that match could end up being for the vacant women's championship if things don't turn out positively for Rhea Ripley, who's out nursing a knee injury right now. Been very quiet on that front, so if we get some unfortunate news coming out of that, we could end up with Jade and Charlotte for the vacant title at SummerSlam. And, you know, there you go. But that's it for Night of Champions. A few good matches in there. You know, that main event, the triple threat, was a pretty fun match. The cage match was pretty good. Ricky and Trick had a pretty good match. The women's matches, probably the weaker things on the show. Match-wise, I guess you can say Jey versus Oba was the weakest thing on the show, but I was more so focused on the outcome of that match, and that was more than enough satisfactory for me. But that about does it there. We do have a bunch of big shows coming up still this weekend. As I'm recording this is just Saturday, and on Sunday, there's a day full of big wrestling shows. Like TNA has, I believe, its Slammiversary. NXT has their Great American Bash show. And of course, AEW is coming with Forbidden Door, which I have not been overly thrilled about the build-up to. So even as I'm recording this, it's still up in the air if I'm going to review that or not. We will see. But that does it for me here as far as WWE is concerned. Next time I'll likely be talking about a WWE show. Could be Saturday night's main event from Madison Square Garden. But after that, it'll be the 2 nights of SummerSlam in August. So until next time, thanks for listening, and I will check you guys later.